We have ignition sequence start. The engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit. We have liftoff.
Man's conquest of space was born out of war and a rivalry between two superpowers.
Is it confirmed? Yeah?
The United States and the Soviet Union.
It's amazing.
Two nations racing to create powerful weapons with a longer, more destructive reach.
We can reach Western Europe.
What about America?
But the battle to build a better rocket pushed man where he'd never gone before.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In the closing days of the Second World War, American forces seize Germany from the west, while the Soviet Union charges from the east.
In there.
Stay alert.
The two allies are in a race to get their hands on the Nazis' most powerful weapon, a long-range rocket known as the V-2.
The V-2 rocket was invented as a Hitler terror weapon. It could fly about 200 miles in any direction. The V-2 was capable of going into space, the first thing ever created by humans that could actually get high enough to go into space. So technologically, a huge advance for what rockets could do.
The only thing the Allies want more than the powerful V-2 is the genius who created it. German scientist Wernher von Braun. Even though he's the Nazis' top rocket designer, von Braun's real ambitions have never been about war, but about space.
Von Braun's passion was making humans a spacefaring species. He firmly believed that humans should be leaving the planet and exploring other worlds. And he was convinced that we had the wherewithal to do that for the first time in history.
By collaborating with the Nazis, von Braun has been able to finance his experiments with rocketry.
Wernher von Braun was fanatically driven by this vision that he had of space travel. And this was a very expensive hobby. Really, only the military and governments could finance this dream of his. And so for him, he would have sold his soul to just about anybody.
But his V-2 is not enough to save the Reich. Just weeks after the last rocket is launched, the U.S. Army pushes deep into the German heartland. Their search for the V-2 technology leads to a concentration camp called Mittelbau Dora.
You two, in there. You two, scour that building.
But as horrific a discovery as it is, the camp hides another secret.
Colonel, we found something.
A vast underground V-2 factory, only recently abandoned. From the depths of this living hell, the Americans have beat the Russians to the punch.
Open it up.
They have everything they need to produce the V-2. everything except von Braun. But the Americans are in for another surprise.
I have information of deep interest to you. In exchange, I want assurances for me and my team.
Von Braun saw America for what it was, which was a very, very deep pocket and purse. Only the United States could afford to pick up the tab for his dream of space travel, his dream of building rockets that could escape Earth's gravity.
The US government is now in possession of the world's most sought-after rocket scientist. Leaving the Soviets to hunt for any scraps the Nazi rocket makers may have left behind. Their search team is led by a man who is a brilliant rocket scientist in his own right, Sergei Korolev.
In there. Anything?
Like von Braun, Korolev was passionately committed to the idea of humans exploring space and going to other worlds. They were kindred spirits.
Sergei.
The Soviets stumble upon a hidden stash of documents and spare parts that the Americans missed. Now, Korolev has the means to build a rocket capable of traveling into space or striking any enemy of the Soviet Union.
We can reach Western Europe.
What about America?
Yes.
Warfare has been the mother of many an invention. And of course, the essence of that is rivalry. Rivalry between nations, rivalry between superpower blocs have been, let's face it, one of the engines of invention.
In order to make a weapon capable of reaching America, Korolev needs to improve upon the design of the V-2.
The Russians start elongating the rocket so they can hold more fuel, giving it slightly bigger engines, designing their own guidance systems. The V-2 they rechristen the R-1, and then they move to the R-2 and the R-3 and the R-5.
As Korolev begins to perfect his rocket, the military throws him a new challenge. The Soviets have just developed a thermonuclear device, over 100 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And they want to put it on a rocket. Now, Korolev's missile will have to somehow carry almost double the payload. It's a problem that demands a daring innovation. Korolev's R-7 will be 5 rockets in one. Ringing the core will be 4 powerful booster rockets. They'll lift the core rocket past the hold of Earth's gravity. Then they will be jettisoned, freeing the core to fly to its target. It's a breakthrough design, a multi-stage rocket. But now, Korolev has to build it.
Your orders are to keep waiting.
While Korolev is advancing rocketry, the man who created the V2 is getting nowhere.
Werner von Braun and a team of German scientists were brought to Texas, to a military base, and ended up spending 5 years, kept on ice by the American authorities, who said, well, we may not need you at this very moment, but one day we will need your services. 5 very frustrating years for Mr. von Braun.
Von Braun's dreams of space travel have been grounded. But he's about to get help from an unlikely source. Another visionary named Walt Disney. In the early days of the race for space, the Soviet Union has the upper hand. Led by Sergei Korolev, they are developing a multi-stage rocket capable of carrying a nuclear bomb. Meanwhile, in America, German rocket scientist Werner von Braun has been kept on the sidelines by the US government. But he isn't willing to sit idly by any longer.
Since no one will listen to him, he turns to sort of the mainstream media. And he sends out on spec an article to Collier's, which at the time was one of the most popular magazines in the United States.
Von Braun writes a series of dramatic magazine articles celebrating space exploration and catching the attention of legendary filmmaker Walt Disney.
Robots.
Driving electric cars.
I mean, flying cars.
No. I'm not hearing thrilling. I'm not hearing inspirational. It needs to be big.
Disney has been designing a new theme park called Disneyland and is looking for a way to promote its future-themed Tomorrowland.
Disney is a showman. Disney sees in von Braun an effective sales tool to market this new theme park that he is building on the orange groves of California.
Have you ever dreamed of visiting the moon? That dream is about to happen. Visionaries like the brilliant Dr. Werner von Braun.
Over 42 million Americans tune into von Braun's appearance on Disney's primetime broadcast.
This station will be a large rotating...
And he hopes it's enough to push America closer to outer space.
It will take 5 days to travel the 240,000 miles there. To get to the moon, we will need a spaceship like this one.
In the Soviet Union, Sergei Korolev has been developing a multi-stage rocket, armed with a nuclear bomb and capable of reaching America. After years in development, Korolev's R-7 rocket is finally ready for its first launch. Fitted with a dummy nuclear bomb, the R-7 will attempt to strike a target nearly 4,000 miles away. The same distance as from Russian soil to Washington, D.C. For Korolev, everything is riding on a successful hit.
We made it!
Korolev has just built the world's first intercontinental ballistic missile, giving the Soviets the ability to launch a nuclear attack on America.
Yeah, we drink, yeah? Come on!
Our assets in the region, what do they say?
We'll have new intel by 0900.
For U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower, the news is a call to arms. He needs a missile program of his own, but employing the best available scientist would be political suicide.
Von Braun was frozen out of the ICBM program because of his German roots. Eisenhower was very much on board with the development of missile technology, but he certainly wanted to avoid any associations with the Germans.
But while the American rocket program is just getting started, the Soviet Union is moving rapidly ahead. Now that he has a working long-range rocket, Korolev wants to send America a message and a public display of Soviet superiority by putting the first satellite into orbit.
Sputnik?
Sputnik.
Korolev realized here was an opportunity. He had a rocket, he could launch something into space, and he could beat America, and he wanted to show what his country could do. And this was the way to humiliate America.
Sputnik weighs less than 200 pounds, contains only a radio transmitter, thermometers, and batteries, and takes just a month to construct. If Sputnik makes it into orbit, the Soviet Union will be first in space.
Ignition sequence started. 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Soviets did it. They're in orbit.
Is it confirmed?
Yeah.
Von Braun was furious. He fumed when he heard the news. You know, if they'd let us have our way, we could have had a satellite up long ago.
While the Soviets kept their previous rocket accomplishments under wraps, they proudly announced Sputnik's triumph, making global headlines and causing panic in the United States.
Sputnik comes as a tremendous shock to the United States. It scares the bejesus out of the Pentagon. The flinging of a satellite into space shows that they have a rocket that is sufficiently powerful to easily cross the Atlantic and slam into any point in the United States. For the first time in its history, the United States is vulnerable to foreign attack on mainland America.
Soviet rocket scientist Sergei Korolev has launched the world's first satellite, while America's top rocket scientist, German Wernher von Braun, is forced to watch from the sidelines. In response to Sputnik, President Eisenhower announces that the U.S. will launch their own satellite, but it won't be done by von Braun. It will be launched by the United States Navy. The mission is called Vanguard. It will be America's first live public launch, and the whole world will be watching.
When Vanguard exploded, it was humiliating for America because so many people's hopes and dreams were catching up with the Soviet Union, never mind beating them, and it looked like America was even further behind with this humiliating pad explosion. It didn't even get off the launch pad.
The Vanguard disaster leaves Eisenhower no option. If America is ever going to catch up to the Soviets, he needs Wernher von Braun. For von Braun, it's the opportunity he's been waiting a lifetime for. He and his team get to work on building a rocket equipped to put a satellite into orbit. It's called the Jupiter C.
Von Braun is a one-man designing machine and can look at a rocket from head to toe and know what every single piece fits into the big picture. He can make adjustments on the fly, whereas many others have to go back to the drawing room. Wernher von Braun was brilliant.
In just 5 weeks, von Braun's rocket is ready to put the first U.S. satellite in orbit. If he succeeds, he'll be the hero of the fledgling American space program. But if he fails, the United States will fall even further behind the Soviets. With the success of the Jupiter C, America is finally in the space race, thanks to Wernher von Braun. But the U.S. can't celebrate for long, because the Soviets are already upping the ante. After a series of successful tests, Korolev is ready to do what he has been dreaming of: put a human being in space.
Vostok 1. This will take you to space. Whichever of you I pick. Whether you come back, I can't guarantee.
For the world's first cosmonaut, he picks their most promising young pilot, Yuri Gagarin. For the first time, a man is leaving planet Earth and heading to the stars.
Amazing. What beauty. Such incredible colors.
I can't imagine what it must be like to look down on Earth for the first time. Everything is suddenly reduced. The boundaries that separate us must seem to disappear. For that brief moment, you're not thinking in terms of, are you a Russian or are you an American? You're just looking down and just thinking about, we're humans, and this is the first time that we have left our bounds.
Getting Gagarin into orbit is a triumph.
Fire braking rockets.
Bringing him home will not be as easy.
Negative re-entry separation. Repeat, negative separation.
First man in space might be the last. Earth's orbit has become the front line of the Cold War. Led by Sergei Korolev, the Soviets are winning the race. They've put the first man in space. But Yuri Gagarin's re-entry capsule fails to completely detach from its service module. If he can't break free, he'll surely be killed by the extreme heat when he re-enters Earth's atmosphere. But the cables tethering Gagarin's capsule burn away first. Allowing him to twist free and eject at 23,000 feet. He's 200 miles from his targeted landing site, but Gagarin has survived. In just 108 minutes, he's traveled over 25,000 miles. Gagarin is now a national hero. Less than 5 years after Sputnik, the Soviets have beat the United States to space once again. The new American president decides to raise the bar.
This nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Kennedy realized he had to beat the Soviet Union in something. And pretty much the next big thing was landing people on the moon. And all of a sudden, von Braun had an opportunity. He realized that he could build that monster rocket. He could have an incredible technological engineering achievement to oversee.
Now von Braun needs to devise a plan for a lunar mission.
Landing on the moon was largely classical physics. It's like there's gravity, we're going to build rockets that can produce this much thrust. And von Braun had run the numbers. The moon was achievable.
Von Braun fears a direct launch would be impossible. So he comes up with a way to build a lunar lander in space. More than a dozen rockets would rendezvous in Earth's orbit, forming a space station where a large lunar lander would then be constructed. But as brilliant as von Braun's concept is, one young engineer has his doubts.
This thing would weigh hundreds of tons. I mean, could you imagine its fuel demands?
I'm sure von Braun's thought about that.
Tom Kelly is a rising star at Grumman Aircraft, the company contracted to build the lunar lander.
Earth orbit rendezvous is a whole new ballgame from anything we'd done before. And what Thomas Kelly was saying was, why are you going to bring this enormous vehicle down to the surface of the moon?
Kelly is determined to find a better way and develops an idea. Instead of launching into Earth's orbit, Kelly's rocket would enter the moon's orbit, where small landing craft would detach and land on the surface of the moon, then launch back to the mothership and return to Earth. It's a plan fraught with risk.
They would have to rendezvous in lunar orbit. You think rendezvous was scary to people in Earth orbit? Well, it was even scarier to think about doing it around the moon.
Kelly is convinced his approach is better. But to prove it, he'll have to go up against the most celebrated rocket scientist in the world, Wernher von Braun. By the early 1960s, the Soviet Union has taken a commanding lead in the space race, launching the first satellite and the first man in orbit.
Before this decade is out,
President Kennedy has set an aggressive goal for America of landing a man on the moon by the end of the decade. But figuring out how to do it is turning into a battle.
We'd argue it's not too late to discontinue.
Rocket pioneer Wernher von Braun has staked his reputation on a plan to reach the moon from ships orbiting Earth. But young engineer Tom Kelly favors a lunar orbital approach. The stakes are enormous.
Failure would be catastrophic. Gentlemen, lunar orbit rendezvous is not one way to get to the moon. It's the only way.
I've spent the past several years developing an Earth orbit rendezvous approach to landing a man on the moon. After analyzing proposals of other methods, it is my recommendation that the lunar orbit rendezvous is the most practical solution.
For von Braun, it's a stunning reversal.
It wasn't what he wanted to do. But when he realized that this was the way the wind was blowing, and he realized that the engineering numbers were lining up, he was pragmatic enough to change his mind and realized lunar orbital rendezvous was the only way America was going to do it by the end of the decade, which was the deadline that Kennedy has set.
Hello? Yes. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
While von Braun and Kelly start building, the Soviet Union is hardly sitting still. Korolev lands the first man-made object on the moon, Luna 2, and is closing in on his own plan to land a human.
It wasn't just an offshoot of a military rocketry program. He was being trusted to do something to get the biggest headline probably ever, which was Soviet Union lands people on the moon first.
The space race between the superpowers has entered its final and defining chapter. To get men to the moon, von Braun will have to build the largest, heaviest, and most powerful rocket the world has ever seen. His answer is the Saturn V, a 363-foot-tall rocket that works in 3 separate stages and will require 5.6 million pounds of rocket fuel to launch. On November 9th, 1967, the first full trial of the 3-stage rocket is a success. But perfecting it will take more than a single test.
Some of the other NASA managers looked at this and realized this is going to take 10 Saturn V launches. That's not only very expensive, but it's going to take a lot of time. We need to move this forward.
With just over a year left until President Kennedy's deadline, NASA decides that in December of 1968, the third test of the Saturn V rocket won't be a test at all, but will become Apollo 8, the first manned mission to orbit the moon.
There are very few things that have ever been launched like that, and that's very, very quick on your third launch to trust it.
If Apollo 8 is a failure, America might not reach the moon by the end of the decade.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
We have liftoff.
As Wernher von Braun's latest Saturn V launches, each stage deploys perfectly.
You know, first stage was very smooth, and this one is smoother.
Apollo 8 successfully orbits the moon, and the astronauts are safely returned to Earth. But von Braun knows that landing men safely on the lunar surface will be much more dangerous. The Soviet space program is losing its lead, and now it's lost its leader. In 1966, Sergei Korolev, the man behind the Soviet Union's historic space accomplishments, dies at the age of 59. His remains are interred in a place of honor, the wall of the Kremlin. The Americans are only 5 months away from their first attempt at an unmanned landing on the moon. But the Soviets haven't given up the fight, despite the death of their leading rocket scientist. Vasily Mishin takes over the Soviets' lunar program. In February 1969, he launches the first test of the N-1. It's the Soviet equivalent of Wernher von Braun's latest rocket, the Saturn V.
3, 2, 1.
Korolev was such an influential figure and such an incredible motivator that it doesn't seem coincidental that the program was incredibly successful until around the time he died, and then it never really recovered.
Back in the United States, von Braun and his team continue to rehearse the steps for a lunar landing with Apollo 9 and Apollo 10. Then, on July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 blasts off and begins a new chapter in human history. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins traveled 3 days and 238,000 miles to the moon. The entire world watches live as Armstrong and Aldrin begin their final descent to the lunar surface.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong becomes the first man to walk on the moon.
People could actually see something happening historically. You could actually watch Neil Armstrong make those first steps on the moon live on your television. And it's something that everybody alive at that time remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing.
But not everyone is celebrating just yet. Landing the lunar module is only half the mission. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin still have to blast off from the moon and return home.
The fear that Armstrong and Aldrin may be left on the moon was real enough that a speech was prepared for President Nixon saying something along the lines of, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to explore the moon in peace are now going to remain on the moon."
Tom Kelly and his team have tested the lunar launch system countless times in the lab. But if it malfunctions on the moon, it isn't just a problem, it's a death sentence.
This is, as one of the astronauts used to call it, a sweaty palms moment. There's a real possibility that when it comes time to light the ascent engine, it doesn't fire.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Armstrong and Aldrin successfully leave the moon and reunite with Collins in lunar orbit. Apollo 11 is the first of 6 successful lunar landing missions over the next 3.5 years. In all, 12 Americans will walk on the moon, and the United States can claim the greatest prize in the race to conquer space.
If Sergei Korolev had not died, who knows if the Soviets would not have reached the moon first. His passing was really a crippling blow to the Soviet space program. They couldn't put a man on the moon. They couldn't compete with the Americans on that score.
Wernher von Braun spends the rest of his life introducing a new generation to space travel, developing the concept behind NASA's Space Camp program, and helping to establish the National Space Institute. For decades, the United States and the Soviet Union continue their space rivalry. But during the Cold War, the two superpowers find success in collaboration as well. How do I look? Every age is defined by its innovations. The greatest advances are born out of fierce struggles between rivals.
It is with a very deep sense of humility that I come to this moment of announcing the birth in this country of a new art so important in its implications that it is bound to affect all society. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we add sight to sound.
Hey, watch it, kid.
Television is an art that shines like a torch of hope to a troubled world.
The television is one of the most revolutionary inventions of our time.
Get away! Take it easy. Hey,
but the story of its creation is the ultimate David and Goliath tale. A decades-long battle between one of the biggest media moguls in the world and a one-time farm boy from Idaho, driven to turn a childhood vision of the future into reality. Their rivalry would bring an already rich man even more wealth and power, and push the other to the brink of insanity. But together, they brought the world into the home and connected humanity like never before. In the early 20th century, a new invention has captured the imagination of the world. A device known as the radio.
Radio changed America. All of a sudden, the nation can participate in a single event at the same time.
Before this, if a big event occurred in Washington, people on the West Coast would hear about it hours later, days later. Radio brings the nation together in real time in a way that had simply not been possible before.
One man sees the potential of the budding radio industry and wants to dominate it.
Thank you. Good morning. How are we today? Yes.
The lawyers are right.
They are.
Mr. Sarnoff, the annual report's ready.
I don't like that title. Change that right away, please. Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen.
His name is David Sarnoff, and he's the general manager of RCA, the leading radio broadcast company in America.
Sarnoff was an ambitious and very driven man. He wanted to climb as far in this business that he loved as he could, and he never let any obstacles stop him from pursuing his goals.
RCA manufactures radios and owns over 2,000 radio patents. Sarnoff believes the patents are where the big money is to be made.
What do you see, gentlemen?
I see the parts to a radio.
What I see is the technology that goes into the radio. 75% of all radios were sold by other companies. That's how we make our money. License the patents. We turn our competitors into customers. Every time they sell a radio, we make money.
Sarnoff was able to create power for himself and RCA by taking all the inventions in the radio world and putting them together into one asset. So anyone who made a radio had to license the patents from him. He was a genius because he saw the whole ecosystem of radio. That it wasn't just a technological invention, it was an entire industry.
It's my honor to introduce tonight's main speaker. Today, radio is a household word. For those of us in the industry, he is not just a leader, he is radio. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you David Sarnoff of RCA.
As radio's popularity surges, RCA's profits soar. David Sarnoff has built a media empire. But nearly 2,000 miles away, a teenage farm boy is formulating an idea that could make radio obsolete.
Schemes to create television are not new, though every previous attempt has failed as the greatest minds in history have tried to perfect this technology.
14-year-old Philo Farnsworth has a knack for electronics, but he is also a dreamer.
Philo Farnsworth was the son of a potato farmer. He was shy and withdrawn, but he had some kind of inner drive. He was always tinkering with crystal radio sets, and he was looking up to the heroes of the age, like Edison, Tesla, Ford, the Wright brothers.
Farnsworth dreams of adding moving images to the radio by capturing a picture electronically, as a microphone does with sound. But he can't figure out how to make his dream a reality. Until inspiration comes from an unlikely place: the plow lines of his father's field.
Farnsworth had the natural talent for science, and it suddenly occurs to him that it would be possible to build a device that would scan an image line by line, the same way your eye scans the pages of a book.
Farnsworth's inspiration soon turns to an obsession. Between schoolwork and farm work, the teenager refines his idea. A device that could electronically scan an image dozens of times per second, then transmit that picture across the airwaves at the speed of light.
Time doesn't exist when you're creating. 24 hours feels like an hour, and the next thing you know, a whole day's passed. That's creativity. Nothing else matters.
You're the only person I know who might understand this idea.
Farnsworth shares his idea with his high school science teacher, Justin Tolman.
You came up with this yourself?
Yes.
It was unbelievable to a man of science like Justin Tolman that a kid would have this miraculous breakthrough that scientists around the world hadn't conceived of.
Be careful who you trust with this.
For the next 4 years, Farnsworth fine-tunes his design. Leaving Idaho and relocating to California with his new wife, Pam. Farnsworth sets up a small laboratory, determined to make his dream a reality.
It sends images through the air without wires, and it's called television. Now, the key is...
In a stroke of good fortune, the Crocker family, one of the original investors in the Transcontinental Railroad, gets wind of Farnsworth's idea and wants to invest.
$25,000 at 60% share.
But I only asked for a 49% share.
$25,000 for 60.
It was a difficult decision that he had to face, which was, I need to raise money to build my television, to get it out into the world. And the only thing he could do was give up partial ownership of his baby.
The investment is enough for Farnsworth to jumpstart his small lab and build a prototype of his television.
It takes an entrepreneur and perhaps a team of people that get behind an idea and push it and push it. They push to get the capital to fund it. They push against competition that wants to crush it.
Okay. This should do it. All right, Cliff. Let's get that curtain shut.
Farnsworth is ready to put his prototype to the test and glimpse the future.
All right, hit it. We gotta get something here. Hold on. Okay, try now. Still not seeing anything. Shut it down.
Farnsworth's first attempt is a failure, and his dream of creating a working television hangs in the balance. In less than 10 years, David Sarnoff has built RCA into a radio empire. But in San Francisco, a young inventor named Philo Farnsworth has built a prototype of a television, a machine that could crush radio supremacy. There's just one problem. It doesn't work.
Farnsworth needed a way for the negatively charged electrons that got shot across the cathode ray tube to stick to the surface of the screen.
Positive and negative. Opposites. They attract. So the coding needs to be the most positive element.
Farnsworth focused finally on cesium, which was the most photopositive element he could find. And that was really a big part of the breakthrough that made television work.
With his design reconfigured, Farnsworth is ready to show his investors exactly what they've been waiting for.
Gentlemen, now, you asked me when you would see dollar signs in this gadget. Cliff? Look right here.
It says something about Farnsworth's conviction and the force of his personality that he was able to get this up and running. One of his investors said, "The ideas in this boy's head will astonish the world."
This is going to make us a fortune. We just have to pick the right time to sell.
Sell?
Let's just see what kind of offers we can get.
Farnsworth said, no, 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 I'm an inventor. I'm gonna use the money from licensing the patents to create more inventions and refine the invention. He wanted to be in control of it. He wanted to be the Edison of television.
Farnsworth needs to convince his investors that they'll make more money if they hold on to his invention.
Why don't we invite the newspapers? A demonstration.
Farnsworth called a press conference, and the San Francisco Chronicle came and snapped a photo of this young genius and his amazing light machine.
While Farnsworth applies for a patent, the news of his television quickly spreads throughout the country.
Thank you, Diane.
And lands on the desk of David Sarnoff.
Sarnoff's reaction was a little bit of panic because he was the radio monopoly. And in one sense, television could disrupt the market for radios. People might stop buying radios if they read that in the near future, I could see pictures on this thing.
If Sarnoff can patent television first, then RCA could own this new technology, just like they do radio.
He had a very keen awareness of how important it was and how much power having a patent could give you in shaping the course of future technological development.
But to compete with a mind like Philo Farnsworth, Sarnoff will need someone equally as brilliant. And he finds his man in Vladimir Zworykin.
Zworykin was a Russian engineer who was working at Westinghouse in Pittsburgh who had early designs on electronic television as well.
Zworykin has filed for patents on his own electronic television system, but he hasn't been able to produce a design that works.
Here it will capture the image and send it wirelessly.
Sarnoff offers Zworykin 4 times the budget of Farnsworth to bring television to life.
David Sarnoff knew that television had to be invented at RCA, and he needed to take credit for the invention, whatever the cost.
The race to invent television has begun.
This is going to make us a fortune.
In the late 1920s, television is on the cusp of becoming a reality. And radio giant David Sarnoff wants this new technology under the control of RCA. But by August 1930, Philo Farnsworth is already way ahead of him. 3 years earlier, the young inventor submitted a patent for his design, and finally, it's been approved. According to the United States government, Philo Farnsworth is the inventor of electronic television. His patents will last for 17 years, and now he's in reach of his ultimate goal: a television in every American home, with the Farnsworth name on it.
Is that it?
David Sarnoff has spent $100,000 to recruit Vladimir Zworykin to develop a television for RCA.
Well, we just need to figure out a way to keep the negative charge from building up on the screen.
In other words, his works and ours doesn't.
Sarnoff refuses to be beaten to the most important invention of the 20th century. So he makes a bold move to put television at the forefront of RCA.
It's impossible to boil David Sarnoff down to one thing. He's either a corporate visionary or the most ruthless robber baron you can possibly imagine.
Despite the fact that Farnsworth owns the patent, Sarnoff announces that RCA will invest $1 million in developing a television.
David Sarnoff thought that if he couldn't buy up a patent outright, he would steal it. And if he couldn't steal it, he would find a way to delay progress, to give his own team time to do the same thing in a different way. To his way of thinking, that was how the game was played.
Farnsworth can see the race is heating up, and if he wants to compete, he has to move fast.
Farnsworth faced a choice. Either he could raise massive amounts of capital and begin manufacturing televisions himself, or he could license his patents and begin working with a radio company that knew how to manufacture this kind of equipment.
In an effort to get his television to market before RCA, Farnsworth turns to a Philadelphia-based radio manufacturer called Philco. But just when Farnsworth is starting to make progress, he is blindsided by the power of David Sarnoff. Philco, like almost every other radio manufacturer, has to license radio patents from RCA.
Why don't you look at the numbers?
And when David Sarnoff learns of their television partnership with Farnsworth, he decides to flex all of his muscle.
What Sarnoff ends up doing, essentially, is pressure Philco to get out of television by saying, if you keep working with Farnsworth, we will stop allowing you to use RCA's radio patents.
Philco's backing out.
What?
Sarnoff's aggressive tactics have backed Farnsworth into a corner. If Farnsworth is going to win, he'll have to find a way to strike back.
We're gonna sue him.
Philo.
David Sarnoff has blocked Philo Farnsworth from manufacturing his television. But Farnsworth isn't backing down. Now, in a bold move, the young inventor will meet Vladimir Zworykin and the best lawyers RCA's money can buy in court to determine who the invention of television really belongs to.
Was television invented by Mr. Zworykin, working with brilliant minds in the world's finest research facility? Or was it invented by a 15-year-old farm boy?
RCA mobilized the strength of its full legal department, and they had some of the best lawyers in the country. Farnsworth had what he felt was the right on his side.
They will have no choice.
The case rests on who had a design for working television first. Vladimir Zworykin filed his patent in 1923, while Farnsworth submitted in 1927, 4 years later. If RCA can prove Zworykin's original design was functional, Farnsworth could lose everything.
The question at stake was who described in their patent applications a working television system first. And this was pretty hard to figure out. So they had to hash all this out in patent court. Technical experts had to go through all the evidence.
It's our belief that if this court is able to answer this question successfully by laying out an accurate chronology, they will have no choice but to find for my client.
The hearing drags on for 15 bruising months. Farnsworth's legal fees reached $30,000, over $500,000 in today's money. And the ordeal is taking a brutal toll.
The fighting back and forth between his operation and RCA, it's proven a real physical and emotional strain. He turns to alcohol.
David Sarnoff knows he has time on his side. The longer deliberations last, the longer he can keep Farnsworth away from his lab and his invention.
Important. Cannot be allowed to distract us from the essence of this case.
It's very much a David and Goliath scenario. Farnsworth doesn't have deep pockets, and Sarnoff knows he can spin this out as long as he has to.
With no hard evidence to prove that he came up with television first, the case is turning against Farnsworth. But he has one last hope.
The plaintiff calls its next witness.
How do you know Mr. Farnsworth?
Well, I was his teacher in high school.
And how did you come to learn of his idea?
One day after science class, he explained it to me.
And you evaluated the idea and judged it to have merit, is that correct?
As best I could.
Where was your training in physics?
I studied chemistry and taught it.
But no training, no background. But you come here and testify that what Mr. Farnsworth told you in 1922, when he was 15 years old, matches his patent from 1930.
I have proof. He not only told me about television, he drew me a picture.
Tolman's testimony proves that Farnsworth conceived of a working television 1 year before Zworykin.
This was an amazingly dramatic moment for Farnsworth because Mr. Tolman remembered this kid as the smartest student he's ever had. So this was a very powerful emotional statement of his teacher coming to his defense to hopefully win this landmark patent war.
In fact, Farnsworth's childhood sketch is remarkably similar to his actual plans. On July 22, 1935, Farnsworth is awarded priority of invention. He's free and clear to pursue his dream to make and sell televisions. But his victory is short-lived.
Okay, next. Mr. Sarnoff, we have a rigorous appeals strategy plan.
Keep him busy. File injunctions delay him.
For how long?
For years. Until his patents expire.
Despite the ruling, Sarnoff refuses to admit defeat. By applying legal pressure and leaning on political connections, he's determined to keep Farnsworth from manufacturing, buying time for Zworykin to build a working television for RCA, one that isn't dependent on Farnsworth's patents.
Sarnoff brings his power to bear to suppress any business advantage that Farnsworth might have had. Basically, he's trying to cut off any flow of money and essentially tighten the noose around Farnsworth.
Farnsworth has developed a 10-inch television with 343 lines of resolution. He's won the right in court to manufacture it and make a fortune. But at every turn, he's blocked by David Sarnoff.
Farnsworth had a lot going for him. He had a working television system. He had the patent rights to produce this television system and earn money from it. But he couldn't do it. Farnsworth was powerless.
While David Sarnoff keeps Philo Farnsworth from manufacturing his invention, the media mogul begins laying the groundwork for his television empire. He builds a new lab in the center of Manhattan and begins conducting tests from a transmitter atop the Empire State Building. Sarnoff has a grand plan to launch America's first television network called the National Broadcasting Company, or NBC. But he can't do any of it unless Vladimir Zworykin can build him a television that works.
Mr. Sarnoff.
Where's your team?
It's Sunday.
I need you to get me a television that I can sell.
the tycoons of the 19th century, the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, the Carnegies. Sarnoff definitely saw himself as one of those people. When he saw a technology that he felt had potential, he was willing to put in as much money, time, manpower, resources as necessary to bring it to fruition.
Zworykin rises to Sarnoff's challenge, steadily improving their prototype's resolution, line by line.
Zworykin was a very, very talented, very accomplished scientist, and Sarnoff had the good sense to supply him with the tools he needed and let him get on with it, and Zworykin did.
Zworykin gets his television up to 441 lines of resolution and 30 frames per second, the same as Farnsworth's. Sarnoff has spent the modern equivalent of $165 million to finally match his rival. Farnsworth has spent less than a tenth of what Sarnoff has, but the physical and mental toll has been high.
By 1939, Farnsworth had been working 18-hour days for 15 years, and he was driving so hard at it, and he was compensating by drinking heavily. He wasn't getting sleep. He had ulcers. He had all kinds of personal problems.
There was an enormous cost to Farnsworth of the ongoing struggles, but he always rallied. He always came back. And as bad as things got, he never gave up.
As Farnsworth continues to labor on his dream, Sarnoff is ready to go public with Zworykin's creation at the greatest show on Earth, the 1939 New York World's Fair. With its theme, The World of Tomorrow, it would draw 44 million people. The world is about to be introduced to television.
How do I look?
Good, sir.
It's important.
It is with a very deep sense of humility that I come to this moment of announcing the birth in this country of a new art so important in its implications that it is bound to affect all society. Television is an art that shines like a torch of hope to a troubled world. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we add sight to sound. Move, move.
Get away! Hey, watch it, kid.
It is with a very deep sense of humility that I come to this moment of announcing the birth in this country of a new art so important in its implications that it is bound to affect all society. Television is an art that shines like a torch of hope to a troubled world.
David Sarnoff has beaten Philo Farnsworth in the battle to introduce America to the technological marvel of television.
Get away! Hey, watch it, kid.
Even though the courts named Farnsworth the creator of television, it's Sarnoff who's getting all the credit.
Farnsworth was powerless to overcome that kind of publicity. Farnsworth was essentially done in by the power of his own invention. The hidden power of television was you could create an image that was perceived as reality, and you could not overcome that.
Despite his public victory, Sarnoff isn't satisfied with his current model. Vladimir Zworykin keeps working and develops a second television that's far superior to the first. The only catch is that it uses elements of Farnsworth's design. To put the best television on the market, Sarnoff will need to do the one thing he swore RCA never would.
Sarnoff tells his lawyers that they need to go purchase the rights to use Farnsworth's patents, something that RCA had never done. They're used to having other people pay them patent royalties. This was a complete reversal of their normal business practice. But they had to do that.
It's the payout that the inventor has always wanted. But before Farnsworth is able to meaningfully advance his design, fate intervenes.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Suddenly, television is the last thing on American minds.
When the US got involved in the war, all manufacturing in the United States had to be dedicated to wartime equipment. So television was literally put on hold for 6 years. Farnsworth's patents expired in 1946, so he was not able to earn royalties from his invention in time for this incredible explosion of television taking over America.
By the time the war ends, Farnsworth's patents are no longer valid. Now, anyone can use the technology he devised.
Thank you. Make an appointment, please. Make an appointment.
David Sarnoff seizes the moment. RCA develops its first consumer TV since the end of the war and sells nearly 10,000 in its first year.
Television did what radio had already been doing, but it did it better. So now not only could you hear what was happening, you could see what was happening. You could be there.
Sarnoff's TV network, NBC, has been broadcasting experimentally since 1937. Now it's ready for prime time, and television enters its golden age.
Television unified the world in a way that it never had before. For the first time, instead of just hearing of what was going on someplace else, you could now see live what was going on half a world away. This was an amazing, almost magical ability granted to us by this technology.
In a matter of 3 years, the number of televisions in American living rooms climbs from 40,000 to over 9 million. And RCA's profits increase from 9 million in 1940 to nearly $50 million just 10 years later. It isn't long before television takes over as the most popular form of entertainment in America.
Parity plus 00085.
In 1969, television cements its place in human history. when the world watches an unprecedented broadcast from outer space.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful, video.
In the years following World War I, the German economy is in ruins. For young Germans like Werner Heisenberg, the country's defeat is shattering.
Heisenberg, like many German youth, was definitely patriotic. He really believed that Germany should be strong and that Germany needed to recover.
Heisenberg pours himself into his chosen field, a new science called quantum physics.
Quantum physics is the physics of the atom, where we have bizarre concepts like, how can something disappear and reappear someplace else? How can you be two places at the same time? But that's what electrons do all the time.
Heisenberg publishes a paper that describes the limitations of what we can know about how particles behave at the subatomic level. It's called the uncertainty principle, and it'll forever change how quantum physics is understood. In 1933, Heisenberg receives the Nobel Prize, making him one of the youngest winners of all time. He is now one of Germany's most important scientists, just as a new party is coming to power in the country: the National Socialists.
Consider the physical phenomenon on a nanoscopic scale.
5,000 miles away, Heisenberg's work has captured the attention of another young physicist.
Where the action is on the order of the Planck constant.
J. Robert Oppenheimer is an ambitious college professor who also dreams of making his mark on the world.
He was born to a fairly well-to-do family of Jewish immigrants from Germany. Extremely intelligent, extremely capable. He's ambitious, and Oppenheimer's salvation in physics was being exposed to quantum mechanics and Heisenberg.
Oppenheimer sees Heisenberg's subatomic world as a new frontier, ripe for discovery, especially when he gets word of a singular breakthrough. A team of Germans claim they've turned quantum theory into action and have split the uranium atom. Oppenheimer doesn't believe it's possible until his team recreates the experiment and they see for themselves. A nuclear reaction releases more energy than a chemical reaction, as much as 50 million times more.
The splitting of the atom releases a little tiny bit of energy. But if you split a huge number of atoms at the same time, you release an unprecedented amount of energy. The question on the table was, could that be done?
The discovery means it could be possible to create a weapon of unimaginable power. Oppenheimer sees it as a harrowing revelation, and he's not the only one. The idea of creating a nuclear bomb is a theoretical question. Both Oppenheimer and Heisenberg know it won't stay that way for long. Hitler has rebuilt Germany into a fearsome power and has begun his conquest of Europe. Many German scientists have already left the country. But Heisenberg stays.
I've never before had the honor of addressing a Nobel Prize winner.
The honor is mine.
My superiors are concerned about your association with Jew physics.
You mean Einstein?
Einstein, Bohr, Planck, Isidore.
I know the rumors.
That you are a white Jew?
Everything I do is for the greater good of Germany. We both want to bring order to the world. Me through science, you through government.
I will speak with Reichsführer Himmler about your case.
Heisenberg was a patriot, but he was not a Nazi. That left him with a serious conflict.
After a year of questioning, the Nazis finally accept Heisenberg's loyalty. In 1939, Heisenberg sets off for the United States to meet with some of the brightest minds in nuclear physics.
He went to discuss the latest discoveries. And so, just before the outbreak of the Second World War in Europe, we find Heisenberg at a conference in the United States about this brand new and interesting discovery called nuclear fission.
It's a gathering of the most renowned physicists in the world. But with the Nazis aggressively marching through Europe, their meeting is no longer just about science.
Do you have a moment, Professor?
Of course.
Your paper in 27 on uncertainty, that made me a theoretical physicist.
You agreed? Even when Einstein questioned my work?
An unpredictable, unknowable universe. I couldn't agree more. I hope America will be seeing more of you.
Nowadays, it seems very unlikely.
Well, you know, of course, you'd be welcomed with open arms.
Welcome to work against my homeland.
To save the world from Hitler.
I have seen what the world can do to Germany. Thank you, Herr Doctor, for your hospitality.
Heisenberg said basically, no, I'm not going to defect. He wasn't ready, in fact, he never was ready to throw over his patriotism for Germany.
By pledging his allegiance to Adolf Hitler, Werner Heisenberg has just become one of the most dangerous men on Earth. Atomic physicist Werner Heisenberg will stay in Nazi Germany. As Europe now erupts, Hitler takes Poland. France and England declare war. Within months, the Nazis are planning invasions across the continent and exploring the possibility of a nuclear bomb.
chain reaction. Create one with uranium, and you've got an instrument of unimaginable power.
Once you knew you could get all this energy out of the nucleus, you could imagine building a nuclear bomb of unbelievable destructive force. So the high government response is basically, this looks really like something important. Let's move on it.
So, when can we expect delivery of your first super bomb?
The principle is simple. The process is not. There are 1,000 problems that have to be answered, 1,000 questions we just begun to see.
I'm sure your next report will be more optimistic.
The Nazis order Heisenberg to get to work. Heisenberg wastes no time. In America, the nuclear effort has barely begun. Until Albert Einstein, the most famous physicist in the world, writes a letter to President Roosevelt.
Albert Einstein changed the course of history. He talked about a super weapon being created by Germany's finest physicists, a device which would wipe out an entire city harbor. Franklin Roosevelt took this seriously.
In October 1941, Roosevelt initiates a top-secret plan. 1,250 tons of uranium ore have been shipped from the Belgian Congo to New York City, where nuclear scientists are already based to test it. The operation is dubbed the Manhattan Project.
Meet a lot of people tonight, but don't be afraid.
All that's missing is a star scientist to lead the effort.
Here we are. Hello. 3 glasses of Merlot, please.
As a well-paid professor at the University of California, Berkeley, Robert Oppenheimer is enjoying the perks of academics. But despite his carefree lifestyle, Oppenheimer wants more.
Oppenheimer is ambitious. He's always wanted to be seen as this real genius, as a guy who could accomplish great things, and Oppenheimer really wants that. He really wants that accomplishment.
Science and knowledge.
Cheers.
So the energy of a charged atomic oscillator, theoretically associated with the electromagnetic wave itself, represents the minimum amount of energy required to form an electromagnetic field.
Army Colonel Leslie Groves is in search of a scientific leader for the Manhattan Project.
Chapters 19 and 20.
Thank you.
Doctor, Leslie Groves, can I have a moment of your time?
Yes.
Groves didn't get along with most scientists. Groves is very gruff, and he has a very hard time imagining how he's going to wrangle a bunch of theoretical physicists. He can't just order these people around. So when Groves is looking for the chief scientist, the person who's going to be in charge, he's looking for someone scientists will listen to.
Doctor, if the president were to ask you, what are the 3 greatest challenges to producing a nuclear device, what would you say?
Well, Mr. President, number 1, unknown amounts of uranium ore have to be mined, then processed in factories, production on an industrial scale. In the end, we need the uranium highly refined. Number 2, We need to figure out how to pull off a chain reaction. And then how to control it. In a self-sustained chain reaction, we need to go critical.
Oppenheimer had never run anything more complex than a seminar. But Groves left that interview believing that nobody understood as clearly as Oppenheimer what had to be done to produce an atomic bomb.
Now, J. Robert Oppenheimer is in charge of an undertaking that is among the most ambitious and fateful of the 20th century. But he's already years behind his rival. Werner Heisenberg has the lab, the uranium, and the determination
Okay, lower it. Slowly
to
now.
build the Nazis an atomic bomb.
Further.
In 1942, as war spreads across Europe and the Pacific, Robert Oppenheimer and Werner Heisenberg are fighting on a new kind of battlefield. Now that the uranium atom has been split, the nuclear age has begun, and the United States and Germany are in a race to build an atomic bomb.
The Americans are really afraid that the Germans will get a bomb first. They know the Germans have uranium. They also know the Germans have Heisenberg.
The Nazis have already captured 1,200 tons of uranium from Belgium. The key to the bomb is to split those uranium atoms and create an uncontrolled chain reaction.
It's not that each little reaction releases very much energy. It's that if you chain them together, it has exponential growth. If you could make a lot of uranium atoms split at the same time, it would release a tremendous amount of energy, enough to destroy an entire city.
For now, it's just a theory. Unless Werner Heisenberg can prove it.
They didn't know whether you could produce a chain reaction. They had to measure that. They had to show that with an experiment.
Okay, lower it. Slowly now.
Heisenberg builds a small nuclear reactor called a pile.
A little lower.
A neutron source is placed in the center, surrounded by layers of heavy water and uranium. If he can detect more neutrons than he started with, it will be proof that he split the nucleus of multiple atoms. The first step in creating an atomic chain reaction.
Have an excess of over 10%. But if we have an excess of over 10%,
this was a crucial experiment. You needed to prove that a chain reaction was possible before you went through the truly enormous industrial process of pulling out of natural uranium the very rare part of it that will blow up.
Heisenberg's experiment is a beginning. And for now, only one thing is certain. The Nazis are on the path towards an atomic bomb, while the Americans are just getting started. By late 1942, as Europe suffocates under the crushing grip of the Nazis, the Americans can only speculate about Germany's nuclear ambitions. But they are determined to beat the Germans to the bomb.
This is the spot, in my opinion.
Well, is it enough area?
You tell me.
General Leslie Groves and his new recruit Robert Oppenheimer need a better base of operations than Manhattan.
This whole stuff here.
They need somewhere isolated and away from prying eyes.
Oppenheimer wanted a place that was private. General Groves wanted a place we could put up a bunch of barbed wire fences and keep everybody locked away from the rest of the world to keep this program secret.
Oppenheimer convinces Groves he has the answer. An isolated town in New Mexico he's known since he was a boy. It's 30 miles northwest of Santa Fe, and it's called Los Alamos.
They both went out and surveyed the area around Los Alamos where there was a building that they could use as a base of operations.
Welcome. I know you're all wondering why we brought you here to the middle of the desert. Gentlemen, the goal of this project is to produce a practical military weapon in the form of a bomb, in which the energy is released by a fast neutron chain reaction. In this tent, we have some of the smartest men in the world. We're at war, gentlemen. Every day, men are dying. Hundreds, thousands, soldiers, civilians. And that is why I'm calling on you. Let's end this war. Thank you.
Oppenheimer will lead the country's greatest minds in the attempt to build an atomic bomb. But the clock is ticking fast.
This is the ultimate race, and everyone understands if Germany gets the atomic bomb first, all bets are off.
As America fights bloody battles on the opposite sides of the globe, Robert Oppenheimer seeks to bring the war to an end by unleashing the power of the atom.
At our current rate, we'll have only enriched enough uranium for a single bomb. Now, one is not enough.
Oppenheimer realizes uranium alone won't be enough. So he focuses his attention on another radioactive element, plutonium. Unlike uranium, plutonium can be created in a nuclear reactor. But it is far more difficult to detonate.
If you put a target of plutonium here and a bullet of plutonium here, no matter how fast you push them together, they will begin to fizzle, as they call it, before it hits the target.
Unless they can solve the problem, their plutonium bomb will never work. In 1942, Werner Heisenberg became the first scientist to produce excess neutrons in a nuclear reactor. But that was with only a small number of atoms. His goal now is to create a massive chain reaction.
1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and within about 80 generations, you get enough energy out of enough uranium atoms to blow up a city.
Oxygen in the core, lower it quickly.
But that next step is not only difficult, it's dangerous.
Everybody out now. Now, go, now, out!
Heisenberg and his scientists narrowly escape death, and his laboratory is destroyed. But when rumors about the incident spread to the United States, there is a new fear that the Nazis are closer to making an atomic bomb than ever before.
Are you sure? Is it confirmed?
Yes.
There were no satellites in those days. We didn't really have any spies in Germany either. It was one of the few clues, but it was enough to make everyone very nervous.
The pressure on Oppenheimer is increasing. The Americans have discovered a way to manufacture plutonium for the bomb. But he still needs to find a trigger to detonate it.
It was a disaster at Los Alamos. Oppenheimer seriously considered resigning as director. He was so depressed because he did not see how they were going to be able to use plutonium.
I think behind every great genius, you have that vision, that picture that sends you forward. For Oppenheimer, he had a picture. Before the war, he was working on black holes. And he realized that when a star suddenly collapses under gravity, it can burst into a gigantic supernova and a black hole. So why not squeeze it, implode it, reach critical mass, and then it would explode? That is the secret of the plutonium bomb.
Implosion. It's the answer Oppenheimer and his team have been waiting for.
Implosion is the idea where you have a solid ball of plutonium and you put high explosives, TNT, all around it. And what you want to do is have all those explosives go off at exactly the same time, which is really difficult.
The scientists at Los Alamos reach a monumental breakthrough. But Oppenheimer and his team can only hope they're not too late.
This was everyone's night terror. Germany could be close to losing the war, and with a couple of atomic bombs, could turn a loss into a victory.
In the secret desert labs of the Manhattan Project, Robert Oppenheimer and his team discover that implosion is the key to a plutonium bomb.
It's not enough.
It's a revelation that could change the race against the Nazis. Now, they need to make it work.
They reorganize the entire Los Alamos lab around the implosion problem. They pull in experts from other wartime projects. They develop new calculational methods. This becomes the major problem for Los Alamos to solve.
The Americans are feeling the pressure. Reports of Heisenberg's explosion have trickled into Los Alamos.
There was no way of knowing what the Germans were doing. And therefore, you had to do the next best thing, which is to extrapolate from where they were the last time we looked. And there was that pressure, that urgency, with just a few pieces of information.
With his lab in ruins, Heisenberg is summoned to Berlin.
In my report, I've highlighted the steps I feel we have to take in order to...
Your plans have been a complete waste of our time and money. I personally debriefed
the Führer on your progress. What should I tell him now?
With the war going badly for the Germans, the pressure on Heisenberg is more intense than ever. In December 1944, Heisenberg travels to neutral Switzerland to lecture a small group of colleagues at a physics seminar, and the Americans see an opportunity to ensure the Nazis never get the bomb.
There was no CIA during the Second World War, but there was its predecessor,
And by that, I mean
an early organization that was primarily military. And one of its operatives was a very curious man named Moe Berg.
Moe Berg is a former Major League Baseball player for the Boston Red Sox.
And that leads us to A, the interaction.
And he's also a spy who speaks fluent German.
A, the interactions, that's distance dependent, which leads to finite cost.
His assignment, determine whether Heisenberg is making progress on a bomb.
Like to isolate those components that are most
And if he is,
to be affected due to changes.
kill him.
What he's listening for is less about the science. He's looking for a loose comment where Heisenberg says, we'll win the war soon, or we've got a secret that you guys will soon learn and understand.
The same components may well become an integral part of the future theory.
Berg is thinking if Heisenberg gives me any hint that he's working on a bomb program, I can just shoot him right here.
Thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. That will be all. Your SS, aren't you? You tell your superiors, if the Fuhrer wants the bomb, I need men to lead, not to follow me.
Berg left thinking they must not have anything up their sleeve. He doesn't shoot him. He doesn't feel the need to.
Moe Berg's instincts are right. Despite his initial success in splitting uranium atoms, the accident at his lab was a major setback, and Heisenberg has made little progress since.
In the spring of 1945, things start to go very poorly for Nazi Germany in the war. Berlin is being bombed. The Soviets are on the horizon.
Heisenberg continues his experiments in southern Germany. But the Nazis never invest the massive resources needed to bring the atom bomb to life.
Hitler didn't trust his scientists. He didn't take them seriously, so he didn't get a bomb. The German program was behind the eight ball, if you will, from the beginning.
On May 3rd, 1945, Heisenberg, along with Germany's top scientists, are captured by the Allies. His work for the Nazis is over. But as one of the world's top physicists, Heisenberg is considered a valuable asset.
They eventually send him and a number of other German scientists to a manor house in England to be detained and monitored to find out whether they know much about making nuclear weapons.
The Allies are relieved to learn that the Nazis were still years away from making an atomic bomb.
The Americans took a look and thought, oh my God, this is all the farther they got. We got this far in the summer of 1942.
After 2 years of toil in the New Mexico desert, Robert Oppenheimer is only hours away from the most important moment in his life.
By July 1945, they eventually have enough material to make 1 uranium bomb and 2 plutonium bombs. But they're so uncertain about whether the plutonium bombs will work that they have to test one first.
The nuclear device is nicknamed the Gadget, a massive dark gray sphere with 5,000 pounds of explosives surrounding the plutonium and wired with precision detonators.
Watch this rope. Keep going forward.
To simulate the weapon being dropped from a bomber, the Gadget will be lifted onto a 100-foot steel tower.
The stress is enormous. They feel that they have theoretically designed it exactly right. But what about one little connection in one of the hundreds of wires that are connected to this spherical monster? Are they going to work?
But Oppenheimer and his team may have a bigger worry than the bomb not working. What happens if it does?
They realized that there was a possibility that they hadn't figured out all the consequences of basically igniting a small star on the surface of the Earth.
After spending 3 years and over $2 billion, Robert Oppenheimer has built an atomic bomb and is now ready to test it.
Oppenheimer's great worry that night was that the implosion wouldn't work and the bomb would fizzle. You never quite know what the physical world is going to teach you when you do something that's never been done before.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The explosion is 10,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun and equal to 20,000 tons of TNT. Oppenheimer has built the most destructive weapon the world has ever known. Just 3 weeks after the test, an American plane carries an atomic bomb into Japan. In an effort to end the war once and for all.
The world will note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, a military base. We won the race of discovery against the Germans. We have used it in order to shorten the agony of war, in order to save the lives of thousands and thousands of young Americans.
what's amazing is Heisenberg says they have to just be lying. There's no way they could have pulled this off. There's no way they could have built a bomb. It's too hard. We already did all the math on that, and we concluded that nobody, not even the United States, could make an atomic bomb during World War II.
3 days later, a second bomb is dropped on Nagasaki, effectively ending the Second World War.
In view of the later alteration,
Heisenberg is never held responsible for his actions during the war and is returned to Germany to help rebuild the country.
Even though Heisenberg had obviously collaborated with the Nazis during the war, people decided that science in Europe needed to be restored. And Heisenberg becomes this international figure of peaceful science.
For the rest of his life, Heisenberg will claim that he intentionally hindered his work for the Nazis, and will go on to enjoy a celebrated career in academia.
I have one question to you. Why do you want to study quantum physics?
Oppenheimer is dubbed the father of the atomic bomb. But he's haunted by the visions of the devastation the bomb has wrought. And worse, the threat it now poses to the world. A teenager and his friend are on a mission to hack into their local computer center and help themselves to some free computer time. The hacker's name is Bill Gates.
Bill Gates was a guy who came from a well-to-do family in Seattle, had a great education, was a smart guy, was by all accounts a very driven and competitive guy. That was his nature. Bill wanted to win.
Even as a teenager, Gates possesses a rare knowledge. He knows how to operate a mainframe computer.
Mainframe computers were these huge computers that experts used, to crunch data. They were used by corporations, and, the gods of tech had to run these things. They couldn't be handled by regular people.
In 1974, the concept of the personal computer doesn't exist. Until a company in New Mexico introduces the first computer small enough to be used by the general public. It's called the Altair 8800.
It was a proof of concept toy, in a way. I mean, it was a sophisticated toy. It was a direction, but it didn't do a whole lot. It didn't have a terminal, didn't have a keyboard, didn't have any of the things that we typically associate with a computer right now.
Most importantly, there's no easy way to operate it. When the Altair is released, Bill Gates is a student at Harvard University. Gates and his friend Paul Allen know that to be useful, the Altair needs a programming language. And they decide to give it one.
Bill Gates and Paul Allen sensed that something was in the air. They didn't want to spend the next 2 or 3 years watching the parade go by.
They use an early form of programming in which holes are punched into spools of paper in patterns that form commands. to prove that their program works, they'll have to take it directly to the makers of the Altair.
You go. You look older, they'll take you seriously.
Okay.
But Gates and Allen aren't the only ones determined to make computers easier to use. 3,000 miles away, the future of the personal computer is being imagined in a completely different way. Steve Jobs is a college dropout who has just returned from a spiritual quest in India and has limited experience with computers.
He was part of the hippie crowd, the whole drugs and all kinds of alternative lifestyles. He was not trained in computing.
One of Jobs' friends is Steve Wozniak, an electronics and computer hobbyist, who's come up with a radical idea.
Hey!
What you working on?
I got something new. Check this out.
Wozniak has built a computer with a microprocessor, like the Altair. But he's added two other key components: a keyboard and a monitor. Instead of having to punch code into paper, programming can now be written directly using the same keys found on a typewriter.
It was a eureka moment. I could type commands on the computer and they came up on my TV screen. These things I call eureka moments are surprises that even you didn't realize how important they were going to be for how things work.
Jobs is immediately intrigued. But unlike Wozniak, Jobs is less interested in how computers work and more interested in how he can sell them.
Steve was the total businessman. He wanted the company. I just wanted to build cool products. And that was pretty much our relationship. We needed each other so badly.
Bill Gates is waiting on word from his partner, Paul Allen, who's demonstrating the software they created for the Altair.
Okay, this is just a basic language we wrote, but let me type in a few commands and show you how it works.
You don't know which ideas are going to have the greatest potential until you've actually put them in practice. Sometimes someone comes up with an idea and you say, wow, this could really revolutionize the world.
Paul?
Gates and Allen have just sold the first software program for a personal computer. It's enough to inspire Bill Gates to take the biggest risk of his life. At the age of 19, he drops out of Harvard, and along with Paul Allen, starts a small computer company in an Albuquerque strip mall. They call it Microsoft. In a California garage, another ambitious company is being born. Steve Jobs thinks he can sell the latest computer designed by his partner, Steve Wozniak. After all, it has 16 times the memory of the Altair 8800. Now he needs to give it a memorable name.
I was thinking Executech. Maybe Personal Computers, Inc.
No.
It was a brilliant name because it made people laugh. It was sort of
a disjuncture a bit. Apple and computer. Those two words didn't go together, but it made you feel it was friendly. It took the edge off the word computer.
But a clever name won't make it any easier to sell their creation.
Well, as you can see, we're using the ASCII keyboard and as well as the MOS 6502 chip.
Why didn't you use the Intel 8080? It's more compatible.
You can see the design here.
If you want to know
like.
more, you can buy one. I think we've shared enough.
Even with the revolutionary addition of a keyboard and monitor, the Apple I is a flop. Jobs only sells 200 units to computer hobbyists. But Jobs and Wozniak are not ready to quit.
We knew we were going to be successful. We never once thought we would fail. We knew that we were going to shock the world and that we were going to be so far ahead of everybody else's attempts to build low-cost computers that we were going to own the world.
While Steve Wozniak works to make their processors faster, Steve Jobs knows he needs to make the computer itself more appealing. Not only to computer enthusiasts, but to everyone. He begins to imagine a fully contained machine, incorporating all the needed components into a revolutionary, easy-to-use design. They call it the Apple II.
It was just the thing of beauty. Steve Jobs brought a whole different design and spiritual dimension to computing. He looked at the zen of computing, and he was able to bring a sense of beauty to computing.
The Apple II was about to change the computer business forever. And one man is determined not to be left behind. 22-year-old Steve Jobs believes a personal computer will one day be in every home. And now he's one step closer to making that dream a reality. In June 1977, the Apple II was released, and it's unlike anything the public has ever seen before. Its easy-to-use design is an instant hit with consumers. And within a year of its release, the company is bringing in $8 million in sales.
We started selling right away. We were so advanced in the computer world. It was color, it was graphics. We were so many light years ahead of everyone else.
Apple has its first hit. But when Bill Gates gets a look at the computer, he sees a way to advance his own company, Microsoft. The Apple II may be perfect for everyday consumers, but its programming isn't compatible with most business software on the market. Gates knows if he can give it the ability to run business programs, he can cash in on Apple's success. Gates and his engineers spend months developing the soft card, a circuit board that plugs right into the Apple II, allowing it to run business software. But in order for Microsoft to benefit from its design, two of the greatest minds in the computer industry will have to meet face to face.
Sure looks good. the outside. It's what's inside that matters. You know how to write code?
I hire people for that.
Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were like a binary star system. Starting in the 1970s, they orbit around each other. They each have a grand gravitational pull.
Now you'll be able to run everything out there. Word processors, spreadsheets.
Bill Gates has just given Steve Jobs a way to turn his popular home computer into a powerful business machine. It's a win for Apple and for Microsoft. By 1980, selling soft cards to Apple users has become Microsoft's #1 revenue source. And the company triples its sales. But Bill Gates is already looking past Steve Jobs and sets his sights on the biggest name in technology, IBM. For decades, IBM has been at the forefront of business technology. But now they want to get into the personal computer business.
The thing that Gates saw that was important was IBM was going to be a big deal in this area. And so he wanted to be the principal software on that PC.
What we're really looking for is an operating system.
An operating system. I thought you only needed programming languages.
We could go with another vendor.
I mean, we have an operating system.
Gates makes a deal with IBM. Even though Microsoft hasn't actually built an operating system yet. But Bill Gates knows where he can get one.
How's 50 grand sound?
It sounds amazing. Who'd you say it was for?
Confidential.
Gates purchases an already finished operating system from a small software company and renames it Microsoft DOS.
Basically, they said, we're gonna pay you $50,000 and we can do with this anything that we want with it. And the company was glad to sell it to them.
Armed with an operating system, Bill Gates now has the upper hand. So when he returns to IBM, he makes one non-negotiable demand.
I'd like the right to sell it to third parties.
Gates is making software, and software was king. And so Gates made the very shrewd idea of creating software that could be on any device. And I think IBM was not thinking of it in terms of where it was headed.
Gates negotiates a non-exclusive license to IBM for Microsoft DOS. Now, Microsoft has the right to sell their operating system to any computer company in the world.
It probably ranks as the greatest business deal in history. The money that DOS brought in made Microsoft an incredibly wealthy company. And when you have a lot of wealth, you have a lot of power. And you can begin to shape an industry.
Steve Jobs has been watching from afar as Bill Gates dominates the computer business.
Apple's response to the IBM PC was, derision. They thought it was a big, clunky, inelegant box, but they were also smart and they knew anything that IBM stepped into, it was gonna own a chunk of that market.
Jobs knows if he's going to keep Apple competitive, he needs a big idea.
This guy, Jeff Raskin, suggested we go to Xerox PARC Center. He said, they have some things you should see. They're under wraps, they're kind of secretive.
So what kind of great things have you got going on over at Xerox PARC?
Some object-oriented programming, network stuff. Nothing as exciting as you guys.
I tell you what, I'll let you invest your $1 million in our company if you give us a full tour of your facility.
We can make that happen.
Steve Jobs has no idea that what he's about to see will transform his life, his company, and the world. By 1980, the Apple II has become one of the most popular computers on the market, with sales reaching $117 million. But for Steve Jobs, it's not enough. And what he's about to see at Xerox PARC will change everything.
Let me try.
We saw screens with windows that came up. A window looked like one program running and another window with another program. And we didn't understand everything they had and the importance of it, but the visual appearance was so drastic. My comment to Steve was, once you have that, you'll never go back. You knew that once you had this machine, you'd want it forever.
But what Xerox sees as an experiment, Steve Jobs sees as an opportunity.
Xerox, being a big company, couldn't quite figure out, how do we make this into a personal computer? And Steve kept saying, we've got to do it, we've got to do it. They're blowing it at Xerox. We know how to do this.
Jobs takes the idea of a graphical user interface from Xerox and creates a team to incorporate it into a new computer called the Macintosh.
Andy, you're on the Mac team now. Burrell, you're also on the Mac team. And Mike, you're coming as well. Design meeting tomorrow morning, 8 a.m.
Jobs makes one non-negotiable demand. Everyone on the team must be as passionate as he is.
Steve Jobs, he had a certain vision. He was not particularly pleasant to deal with a good chunk of the time.
Oh, this sucks, okay?
There were amazing stories about the pressure cooker that the Macintosh team was under, but he was also the most charismatic guy who ever walked the planet, according to anyone who ever met him or worked with him.
With building the Macintosh demanding all his attention, Jobs realizes he needs a proven business leader to run Apple.
Steve needed somebody who could be a crisp manager and marketer. Because Steve was all over the place. He was not a great manager.
In 1983, former Pepsi executive John Sculley steps in as Apple's new CEO, just as Jobs is nearing completion on the Macintosh.
We're all set.
All the top guys?
Yep. All in for the Mac.
Who'd you pick for software?
Microsoft.
You trust Gates?
There's no one better. What he did for Apple II, insanely great.
Once again, Steve Jobs invites Bill Gates to participate in his latest innovation.
Text is history. Welcome to the future. Apple's future.
Steve wants to show off this notion that they're going to do this user interface. It's really cool and graphical. And Gates thinks it's absolutely wonderful, and he's willing to write Microsoft software to be part of it.
Kind of neat.
But Gates senses an even bigger opportunity for Microsoft.
I think when Bill Gates saw the graphical user interface, I can't imagine he did anything but think like, I gotta run back and tell my guys about this, because this is the way you're gonna interact with computers in the future.
What's wrong with ours?
It's brain dead. His can slide windows around. He can have two open at once.
Why don't we just drum up a lookalike?
We need to beat him to the punch. This has to happen now.
Bill Gates decides to go after Apple directly. He instructs his team to start work on a graphical user interface that they call Interface Manager.
In America, because anyone can use it. A child can use it.
But by the fall of 1983, a different name would finally stick: Windows. When word of Microsoft Windows reaches Steve Jobs, he's only weeks away from releasing the Macintosh, the idea he's devoted the last 3 years of his life to. The man who Jobs thought was an ally has declared war.
Gates, get him down here now.
Steve Jobs and Bill Gates are both staking their futures on the same revolutionary approach to software for the personal computer. But in the effort to get to market with it first, the one-time partners are now at war.
Gates, get him down here now. Is this how you treat your friends? I trusted you. I brought you in on the Apple II. I brought you in on the Macintosh. We had a partnership. We had a deal that you agreed to. And you're stealing from us. You're killing us, and I'm not gonna stand for it.
Bill Gates is a smart guy, and he's a smart businessman, and he recognized an opportunity. He wanted to create a great computer. He wanted to create a great company, a strong company. And you do whatever you have to do to get that.
Windows is still 2 years away from being ready. But Bill Gates knows he needs to beat Jobs to the announcement.
I'm here to show a few highlights for our upcoming product. It sports a user-friendly graphical interface.
Timing is such a factor in these things. So it's like, okay, let's start. Something from nothing. That's the spirit of Silicon Valley.
Steve Jobs' dream has been hijacked. But unlike Gates, he has a working product that's ready to sell and a natural talent for marketing it.
Many of us have been working on Macintosh for over 2 years now. Today, For the first time ever, I'd like Macintosh to speak for itself.
Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag.
The Mac was the ultimate fusion of beauty with technology. The world's first truly beautiful machine. It looks like it's smiling at you. It looks friendly. That made Steve Jobs' heart sing.
The unveiling of the Macintosh is a hit. But the computer itself is slow and struggles to find buyers.
The Macintosh sales fell drastically. We had a factory designed to build 80,000 Macintoshes a month, and the sales fell to 500 a month. Our Apple stock dropped in half. This is scary stuff for a company.
I got with the design department, and I think it's gonna be...
Steve, there's no one who admires your brilliance and vision more than I do.
John, what are you saying?
The board's decided that it's best if you step down.
Steve Jobs had created a board of people who are all almost like father figures to him. And they're looking at the kid, Steve Jobs, who'd become undisciplined, was spending too much money, was antagonizing people, and they finally vote to kick him out of the company he founded. Steve told me it was like a kick in the gut.
In 1985, the Macintosh fails to light the world on fire. And Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computers, is out of his own company. A man who once seemed an unstoppable pioneer has been cast aside. While his rival Bill Gates is building Microsoft into an empire, MS-DOS has become the standard operating system on millions of computers. And on November 20th, 1985, Bill Gates and Microsoft introduced Windows to the world.
The genius of Bill Gates was to realize that there were lots of computer makers, but somebody had to get them to write for the same specifications. There had to be a standard operating system to essentially tame the Wild West of personal computers.
Windows quickly takes the computer business by storm. By the end of the 1980s, 80% of the world's computers use Microsoft's operating systems, making Bill Gates the world's youngest billionaire. But now, Gates goes even further. Microsoft starts to bundle additional programs with their operating systems. Now, anyone who buys a PC automatically gets Microsoft spreadsheets, word processors, and other programs, whether they want them or not.
Bill Gates is a genius at assembling all the parts that were needed to create the modern computer software industry. But he did it in a way that got his rivals to call him a monopolist. a bully.
By the mid-90s, Microsoft's aggressive tactics begin to backfire. Competitors accuse the software giant of monopolizing the industry.
The bundling of the software led to the Department of Justice investigating a lot of claims that Microsoft's business practices were unfair. They were, in fact, suppressing innovation in a marketplace. It squelches third-party software application development.
As Bill Gates' legal troubles mount, his competitor, Apple, is doing no better.
Apple without Steve Jobs is not innovating. They're kind of milking the old product line. They don't even have a good new operating system.
With Windows dominating the industry, Apple's share of the home computer market falls to 4%. And in 1996, the company loses $1 billion.
Apple was struggling. Apple went through a series of CEOs that were treading water. You had, Scully, you had Gil Amelio, you had Spindler. Apple was within a month or two of going bankrupt.
Apple stands on the brink of collapse. So 12 years after forcing him out, the board asked Steve Jobs to come back. But before he can begin making Apple innovative again, Jobs knows he's going to need an infusion of cash, and fast. To get it, he'll have to turn to an unlikely source.
Hi, Bill.
Bill Gates is under investigation for running a monopoly. Steve Jobs is back at the company he founded, but it's on the verge of bankruptcy.
Hi, Bill.
Steve? I hear you're making friends with the
Justice Department?
and you're back on board a sinking ship.
If Apple goes down, you've got no one to fight.
But if you keep us in the game, you can go on winning.
Think about it.
It didn't behoove Gates for Apple to go away at that stage of the game. If you have no competitor, then people say, you own all the market, and that's not a good thing. It's better to have a crippled competitor than no competitor at all.
Now, I'd like to talk about meaningful partners. Apple lives in an ecosystem, and it needs help from other partners. And I happen to have a special guest with me today via satellite downlink, and if we can get him up on stage right now.
Good morning.
This was a remarkable moment when Steve Jobs brought Bill Gates up on the screen. The cult of Macintosh jeered and booed him. He was reviled as a monopolist, as a bully. They hated Windows, they hated PCs, and they hated Bill Gates.
Despite initial backlash, Microsoft invests $150 million in Apple. And Jobs wastes no time turning Apple around.
Steve just takes massive control, and he makes sure that the products are just relentlessly beautiful, like the original iMac with its translucent colors and that rabbit-shaped design.
7 minutes to load a song.
In 2001, Steve Jobs pushes beyond computers
The MP3 player that ruined my day.
into entirely new products, like the iPod.
Maybe something better.
Nobody knew we needed 1,000 songs in our pocket. We all had MP3 players. But Steve said, no, I'm going to create something that's so great. People don't know they want it, but once they see it, they're going to want it. Everybody says, that's great, but Steve says, no. Somebody's going to be smart enough to put this on a telephone, and we'll be left out. So he comes up with the iPhone.
In 2007, fans wait in line as long as over 100 hours to buy what would become Steve Jobs' signature marvel, the iPhone. And Apple is on its way to becoming one of the most profitable companies in the world.
The concept that you could carry around and hold these supercomputers in your hands and do all kinds of things with them and interact with the world is a big idea. You had to pick one person who impacted technology more than anyone in this era. It would have to be Steve Jobs.
While Steve Jobs' reputation soars, Bill Gates has an image problem.
And if we can get him up on stage right now.
He wanted to be beloved, and he wanted his name to go down in history in the pantheon of great men.
In an effort to redeem his legacy, Bill Gates, one of the wealthiest men in the world, turns to philanthropy.
He was motivated to become a philanthropist, not only to make the world a better place, but to rehabilitate his image.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation becomes the largest private foundation in the world.
Gates now is very compassionate and very wise, and has come around to the thinking that we all are on the same team. He's going to leave the world a better place.
For years, Steve Jobs has been downplaying the news that he's suffering from pancreatic cancer. By 2011, his health problems forced Jobs to resign as Apple's CEO.
Maybe he didn't know he was dying, but he knew he had limited time on this planet. Death became an important motivator for him. And if you think about it, everything that he did that people remember him for today were when he was dying.
His death is mourned the world over by legions of fans as devoted to the man as they are to his machines. In the year following his death, Apple would become the most valuable company on Earth.
The relationship between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates was very complex. They were like brothers in a way. They were with each other every step of the way, sometimes rivals, sometimes friends. They were mean to each other, but eventually reconciled because they were the two pioneers that built the industry.